Good evening. It's Tuesday, June 2nd. I'm Cynthia McBride, the pastor of First Christian Church in Portland, Oregon. It's a quiet evening, and Charles and I are sitting in our backyard enjoying the pleasant air of Oregon spring moving into summer. The moon is already up and the birds are singing, but it stays light a little bit later every day. This afternoon, Charles was singing a song by Mercy Me. I can only imagine. Talks about when we get to heaven, how we can only imagine what it will be like. How did the words go again, honey?
Surrounded by your glory, what will my heart feel? Will I stand? No.
I put him on the spot. I didn't tell him I was going to ask him the words.
Yeah. Surrounded by your glory, what will my heart feel? Will I... Goodness.
Surrounded by your glory, what will my heart feel? Yeah. Will I dance for you, Jesus?
Yeah, will I dance for you, Jesus?
Or in awe of you be still?
Will I stand in your presence, or to my knees will I fall? Will I sing hallelujah? Will I be able to speak it all?
I can only imagine. We can only imagine what it will be like when we get to heaven and we're in the presence of Jesus. When we're at the throne of glory, face to face with God's grace, how awesome that will be. Tomorrow afternoon, friends of First Christian Church, our faith family, will gather online to celebrate the life of Marguerite Metcalf. I can only imagine the joy and glory that she already knows. Being reunited with her husband Roy, being in the presence of the divine. We can only imagine. But we're not there yet. We're here on earth. And as beautiful and quiet and pleasant as our backyard is, there are places on this earth that are not quiet tonight. For the past week, there have been riots in American cities as people who are frustrated and angry with the treatment of African Americans, the injustice of systemic racism. People have continued to protest, to cry out for justice. There are corners of this world where mothers weep for children, unborn or nearly dead. There are places along the border where families from Latin America have been separated, little ones locked up apart from their parents. There are places in this world where refugee camps are packed to the gills with people in need fleeing atrocities, and now on top of that there's a pandemic. In the comfort of our backyard, I can only imagine how hard life is for many of God's children. It's a pleasant night in Portland, so friends who sleep outside are doing okay tonight. The weather's not bad, and a lot of them found something to eat. They're probably sitting around talking with friends. But I can only imagine how hard life is. For people who struggle with addiction and alcoholism and mental illness to the point of despair, I can only imagine how it feels either to have been laid off or to be concerned that your job is about to end and you don't know where your next paycheck is going to come from. There's something else, though. There's something else that I can imagine. I can imagine a society that is better than what we have right now. I can imagine the United States of America being more united than we are in June of 2020. I can imagine a country where what matters most is the quality of people's character and not the color of their skin or how their last name might be pronounced. I can imagine in a land of abundance where there is plenty of food, having a food delivery system that is intact and running so that farmers who raise food are able to make sure that people who are hungry get to eat it. And there is justice along the way and economic fairness. I can imagine that. Can you? It seems so far away from where we are right now, but I can imagine health care for everyone. People who are sick being treated and not having to worry about whether or not they can afford their copay to put some more money in the pocket of an insurance company. I can imagine life being different than it is. When I hear of riots on the news, when I hear of protests, whether they are peaceful or more forceful than makes me comfortable, when I hear cries asking for justice, what I hear and what I see is the vast gulf, the gap in between where we are and where we should be. The song by Mercy Me says, I can only imagine, and I can only imagine what heaven might be like, what that glory is. But when I look at where we are now, today, in a world plagued by a pandemic, in a time when so-called leadership seems to be focused more on greed and taking care of wealthy corporations than caring for everyday citizens. When I think about where we are now, where especially Black men have to fear for their lives just to go out, and African American mothers no longer know how to raise their children because they want them to live and to be safe. When I look at where we are now, I can imagine a place that is in between this world and the world yet to come. I can imagine a glimpse of heaven on earth, the reign of God being made a little bit more complete in the here and now. But it's going to take all of us. It's going to take each and every one of us working more faithfully to bring that day and to change this day from where we are to where we should be, where we can be. Can you imagine? Let's imagine it together and then let's create it. May God help us all.